Okay. Ready, Mary? Okay, here we go, guys. I call to order the regular meeting of the City of Aransas City Council, August 16, 2021 at 6 p.m. And let's all rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. And Mr. Gary.
Our Heavenly Father, once again, we thank you for the opportunity to serve you, to serve the citizens of this fine community. And we pray that we make decisions that are in the best interests of our citizens and all those involved with this community. We depend on your word for direction. And this evening, as the case with all meetings, your direction is greatly appreciated, greatly needed. We pray for those who are not well tonight, and we pray that their recovery occurs very soon. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor, and for the record, Councilmember Abrego is not at the meeting today, and she will not be available via conference phone. She's at the hospital with her husband, who's battling COVID. So it would be appropriate if the council would excuse her absence today.
I will make a motion that we excuse Vicki Abrego absence today and anytime in the future due to the COVID situation.
I'll second.
In favor, on favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we're going to go to presentation by Mr. Howard Gillespie, San Patricio County Commissioner, Precinct Number 4, regarding a hospital update.
I've actually stolen the thunder of Dr. Mobley and Ron Jorgensen, who've been working on this since we couldn't bring back the Aransas Hospital. So let me hand out some handouts to go along with it. Follows the slide presentation.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'll take her. Yeah, I'll take it to her.
Okay. All right, other copies are available upon request. I'm going to go through this. Today at Commissioners Court, we had a presentation from Dr. Mobley, our County Medical Officer, and Mr. Ron Jorgensen. They've been working together for the Commissioners Court to research further into a hospital in San Patricio County. Since we all know that the previous owners of, or the major owner of Care Regional there, did not wish to become a nonprofit because he saw no money in nonprofit hospitals. So the only thing left to us is to set up a San Patricio County Hospital District. Now, this has got to go to the voters. So that's part of that because it'll be a taxing entity. I know everybody's interested in paying more taxes, but we need a hospital and it's going to be up to the voters. So you see the next slide, the history of hospitals in San Patricio County. At one point, there were 5. Now there are none. Okay, and so there is a need there, especially with more industry coming into the area. And this show will be shown to you again by Dr. Mobley and Mr. Jorgensen in the future. They'll be going to all the cities at one point, but I didn't want to wait, and I'll answer questions that I can, and they will answer anything I can't in the future, in a future meeting. So, search for a solution. Next slide. Okay. And they investigated feasibilities. They researched on private and nonprofit options. Hospital district was deemed the only viable solution for us in our predicament. Similar to Nueces and Refugio County hospital districts. There is a little difference, though. Nueces County has a hospital district that they collect taxes on, but they work with Christus Spawn, and that money goes to them. Refugio's hospital has its own hospital district that it operates. Should we get approval from the voters and go and have a hospital district and build a hospital, that will belong to the county. It'll be the county's hospital district, and the county will have oversight. So, next slide. Why we need a hospital. And Isolation, if the bridge is down for repairs, traffic incidents, or weather issues, it takes just about 2 hours to get over there sometimes anyway, or at least a 2-hour turnaround for our ambulances to go to Corpus. The golden hour, that's the first hour of any type of a heart attack or anything like that when you need treatment right away. They can stop and stop any further bad damage to you, okay? If you get treatment in the first hour, that's why it's called the golden hour. You got a better chance of survival without any kind of problems later. Indigent Healthcare, we have a lot of this county. We spend a lot of money from the county budget on, it's an unfunded mandate on indigent healthcare. So anybody in the jails, anybody who can't afford insurance of their own, the county has to pay for. So that would help with that. And then we go on to mass casualty, hurricane events, families nearby, ambulance run times. Much quicker run times if we had, I mean, from here to Sinton, it's 25 to 30 minutes. Okay, so even if we had a centrally located hospital, we could get people to the hospital a whole lot quicker than we can now by going across the bridge. Community-centered, was that for me? Community-centered care and earlier access to care instead of waiting until critical. A lot of people won't go to the hospital until they're absolutely in dire need. So if we had one closer, it might work better. Next slide. A governmental entity responsible for furnishing medical and hospital care for the county's needy inhabitants, and managed by an elected board of directors subject to federal, state, and local authorities having jurisdiction and elected to serve as an advocate for the people of San Patricio County. Board meetings would be conducted by the board pursuant to the Open Meetings Act. So they'd be cognizant of everything that we have to do in any other type of governmental agency or body of elected officials. Elections conducted pursuant to H&S and its health and safety standards and Texas election codes. Public funds managed pursuant to the Public Funds Investment Act and Public Funds Collateral Act. So they have to follow all the rules and regulations everybody else does that's elected to office. Tax rate adopted pursuant to health and safety standards and property tax codes, and public bidding and bond requirements for contracts. So they have to follow the same standards we do if we go out for a bond or for a contract. And that's basically what the district is. Now, next slide. The role of a hospital district board. It conducts monthly meetings to discuss the business of the district. It adopts rules governing the operation of the district and the duties, functions, and responsibilities of staff and employees of the hospital. It authorizes operating and management contracts and construction contracts to the district, or for the district. So basically, it's just a governmental body that oversees all the hospital operations. Next is the proposed schedule. So the petition, we had a petition that was signed by over 100 people throughout the county. Mr. Jorgensen went to various cities in the county, Portland, Taft, I believe it was somewhere here, Ingleside too, to get registered voters to sign the petition. That's what was needed first. So then the court sets the date for the vote. That's what we did today. That was August 16th, 2021. So we voted today to have this put on the ballot for the November 2nd election, so the voters could do that. Now, November 2nd, the voters, early voting starts on October 18th, but the next step is that the election day is November 2nd, and the voters determine whether or not they are for the hospital district or not. At that point, if it comes out positive, we appoint a temporary board to serve until there's an elected board. At that point, then they have to begin the design phase of the hospital and then move to the formal election of board members in May of 2022. So from the time the temporary board is appointed, November, December timeframe, to the time the elected board takes over is May of the next year.
Howard?
Yes?
Question. How are those elected board members elected?
They will have to run for office just like the rest of us do.
So it's a public election?
It's a oh yes sir.
Okay.
Public it'll follow the same as the city council cycles. It'll be in May, okay? So that's the way it'll begin. They will run for office just like everybody else does.
Okay, so it won't be like a currently elected official
No.
appointed. They're
This is
actually
all
running.
you know,
okay.
if say This gentleman here would like to be on the board.
Mhm.
He would have to run for office to be on that board. He'd have to finance
no.
his campaign. He would have to be proved to the voters that he's the man for the job, okay? Or the woman for the job, for that matter, okay? So that's, okay. Anyway, yes, you have to do that, okay? It's, you're gonna be responsible to the people for public funds and public trust, okay? So that's the way it's gotta be. Mm? So, after the formal election, then sometime in the summer of '22, construction should begin, and substantial completing, we're thinking about December of '23, if this all goes according to plan. All right, now that's always subject to changes. Who knows what else is gonna happen? You know, I don't wanna go into negative things, but, so, now, next. All right, what will it cost and who pays? Ad valorem tax or property taxes are what pay for it. There'll be, they say minimal impact on San Patricio County residents due to the large tax base with industry and everything that's here. Now, they're thinking probably 9 to 10 cents per hundred, but they're asking, when they go out to the election, they're going to put the maximum of 30 cents per hundred, okay? You can do less, but you can't do more once it's been voted on by the people, okay? So they're thinking 10 cents, but we don't know that until we actually sit down, and so we want to have that leeway there to move into it. And, you know, if you figure, what's that work out to, Mr. Mayor, on a $100,000 piece of property?
It's only what?
About $100?
Well, 30 cents is 300.
No, I'm not talking about 10 cents. That's what we're targeting for 10 cents.
$100.
Yeah, we're targeting 10 cents, so that's what we're trying for, okay? 30 cents would be the max, okay?
So it'd be capped out at 30.
It'd be capped out at 30,
Okay.
could not go higher. The problem with, if we capped it out at 10, if we needed more than 10, we couldn't go higher. So that's why we're doing that, okay? Next, please.
Howard,
Yes,
is that all of San Patricio?
all of San Patricio County, yes. It'll apply to every resident, every homeowner, every property owner in the county, okay?
Howard?
Yes.
You said it, I missed it. Majority vote on election day is.
It's a simple majority, I believe, yes. Okay. So, yes, it's a majority vote. You know, it's not like running for political office where you have to have over 50% of the vote. I mean, it's a simple majority, I believe. And keep that a question, you can ask that, because you'll hear this again. Because the good doctor and Mr. Jorgensen they're gonna be on a road show, going to all the different cities and all the city councils, and you'll hear this again, okay? So anything I can't answer, they will be able to, I think. Anyway, so, if not, I'll find out. So, where will it be built? Okay, if the vote is positive, the board, the temporary board is appointed, will explore all options and recommend the best location in the county. The site assessment and analysis to be performed by qualified professionals. In other words, we'll hire people to do that, to come out with what the best place is. And a joint commission on hospital accreditation has to be considered also. So, in other words, we have to be able to get accreditation for the hospital. It has to be within close proximity to everybody. The question today at Commissioner's Court was, what about Mathis? You know, so I would look for something centrally located. It takes me from the airport to get to the county courthouse about 25 minutes. Okay, so, and you know, county seats were in Texas were centered in the center of the county, so that everybody could travel by horse and wagon to get there in a reasonable amount of time. Okay, so if you can travel anywhere in the county pretty much and get to Sinton in about 25-30 minutes, so without accidents or delays or train stops.
That's on a horse, right?
No, that's by my pickup truck. Okay, sorry, you know, that's a couple hundred horses. Okay, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. Okay, all right. Who else has a hospital district or a publicly funded hospital? And you can look up here. We've got Nueces County, Beeville, Refugio, Victoria, and Port Lavaca. Okay, like I said, Nueces County, they don't have their own hospital. They turn their money over and work with Krista Spahn on that stuff. Okay, but Refugio has its own hospital. It's not a very big hospital, but they have a hospital district and a hospital. So, and let's see, what's next? Okay, All right, economic benefits of a hospital in rural communities, of which we're considered. Creates jobs, economic and population impacts, availability of emergency and inpatient care, and industrial outreach. So all those things can be done in San Patricio County, and that's what we're looking towards, okay? And I worked for a very long time trying to get those people at that hospital to do a non-profit, not-for-profit hospital. They just couldn't wrap their head around that not-for-profit didn't mean no money, okay? People that work for not-for-profit hospitals, they still get paid. So I just couldn't convince the guy. So anyway, so if you look at the last slide, there's questions. I will answer some if I can. And on your handouts, you have a San Patricio County Hospital District with a website and an email. So I didn't have that on the slide. And I'll take questions. Yes?
I have another question.
Yes,
for
sir.
you. Has consideration been given to have an inpatient mental health component built into this? That is crucially important.
We'll get more into that if we get permission to have the hospital district. I mean, we know that, okay? Mental health is, I mean, we have more mental health cases in the county jail probably than there are in the state hospital in San Antonio. There's just no place for them. They're either in jail or on the street.
This is an opportunity.
It is, and that's something we could work towards with the board that gets assigned. And I mean, this will be open. This will be open for anybody to provide input to. They'll have regular meetings just like this. So you'll be able to come and talk and put forth your ideas. But I know mental health is a big problem here. We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars every year of the county budget for indigent healthcare and mental health.
The temporary board, is there a number on how many will be on that board?
I don't know that this time. That I don't know yet. I would say probably 5, maybe 6.
How would they go about selecting so that the
I don't have that. I don't have that answer. Remember, I just got this presentation today,
I understand.
and I knew it was going to be coming. So I talked to Gary last week about being able to give you what I know, and there's still a lot of unanswered questions, and we'll get to those all in good time. Okay. So, and they'll be back, so you can pin them down, and I'll be here when they are, so I can make sure. Thank you, Chief. Thank you all.
Well, thank you.
Thanks,
Any
Howard.
questions from y'all? Okay.
No, I think we're
All right.
good
If you
for
think of
now.
anything, let me know.
Thank you.
All right, thank
You're
you, Howard.
welcome.
Okay, now we're gonna go to the presentation by Gustavo Lopez, Emergency Health and Safety Specialist, Shamours regarding Coastal Plains Local Emergency Planning Committee, Cpl Epc, Ready Safety Notification System, Gustavo Lopez, Emergency Health and Safety Specialist, Shamour Company.
Yeah, Camores. But thank you very much. I also have some handouts too I'd like to pass out before we begin. And I left some also here at the door for just extras. Just a little flyer that talks about a little more information.
If I can have one for Vicki, who is not here today, I'd appreciate it. Come on. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I have extras. I'll
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening to everybody. So once again, my name is Gustavo Lopez. I'm here on behalf of the Coastal Plain LEPC, and I want to talk a little bit today about the Ready Safe program and what it's about and why we're rolling it out. Next slide, please. So what is Cpl Epc? So a little bit about us. So we're the Coastal Plain Local Emergency Planning Committee. It leads the Tri-County area of Aransas, Refugio, and San Patricio in planning for the emergencies and providing the community with information about hazardous materials. Next slide.
We're trying to catch up to you again, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Quite a broken thing here.
One more. There we go. Okay. Thank you. So who's involved with the Cpl Epc? The members are volunteers, consist of local leaders, business owners, community members as well. It's run by board members. There's a list here. President Brandon Luttrell, I'm sure most of y'all have heard or know who he is. And it goes on down the list. I'm not going to read them all to you here, but essentially this is what the Cpl Epc consists of as board members and volunteers. Next slide, please. What areas does Cpl Epc serve? The areas served are Aransas, Fulton, Rockport, Refugio, Oswell, Bayside, Refugio City, Woodsboro, and the giant list of cities here in San Patricio as well. So as you can see, we serve a pretty large area. Next slide. So why the Cpl Epc? So the purpose of us is the role of the Cpl Epc is to form a partnership with local governments, industry as a result of the Emergency Planning Community Right to Know Act of 1986, and to be a resource for hazardous materials preparation. The EPCRA establishes requirements for industry and governments regarding emergency planning and community right to know reporting for hazardous chemicals. Next slide. So what's the Ready Safe program? The Ready Safe program is designed to ensure readiness in the event of an emergency and to keep the community safe. The Ready Safe outreach program is aimed at increasing awareness of emergency management planning and highlighting the valuable resource the Code Red notification system provides to the community. The Ready Safe outreach program is our way to stay connected with the community, share important alerts through our Code Red notification system, and send information directly from local officials and industry partners. So just to elaborate a little bit about what all that's saying is, the Ready Safe program is just simply a program to reach out more, to have more members sign up in the community for the code to receive Code Red notifications. I know it can be a little confusing with the two, Ready Safe, Code Red, all this, but essentially we're looking to have more folks in the entire area sign up for Code Red notifications. Next slide, please. So what is Code Red? As I just mentioned, right? Code Red is the community notification system that we encourage residents in Aransas, Refugio, and San Patricio counties to opt in and receive non-emergency and emergency alerts in your area. Next slide. The alert notification systems, the quickest and most efficient way for local officials and industry to notify the community is for you to sign up for the Code Red emergency and non-emergency alerts. So this is a volunteer-based program. Essentially, you have to sign up to receive them. We can't just force notifications on the public that are non-emergency. Next slide, please. So emergency versus non-emergency, right? It's pretty self-explanatory, but just to give some examples, through the Code Red non-emergency notification alerts, you will receive information directly from local officials or industry partners on occurrences such as severe weather alerts, planned flaring, abnormally loud noise, road construction alerts, et cetera, et cetera. Next slide. Emergency alerts, the Code Red notification system is one of many systems designed to notify the community in the unlikely event that local officials need to contact the community. Residents who opt into the system can receive emergency information such as evacuation, shelter in place, water boil orders during natural and man-made disasters. And then, of course, any other notifications from industry partners as well, right? Next slide. So how to sign up. On the screen, you'll see that there's a website here where we encourage folks to go to the coastalplainlepc.org. Click on emergency and non-emergency notifications. Select which alert notifications you would like to sign up for, whether it be non-emergency, emergency, or both. Complete your profile with Code Red. So it'll send you the Code Red page where you'll go there to complete your sign up. Just as a note, each alert notification option has its own registration process. So they'll differ slightly, but you'll just have to go through whichever one you want, right? Next slide, please. And also, there's the State of Texas Emergency Assistance Registry. or also known as steer. If you or anyone know needs assistance during an emergency event, the Cpl Epc can also help you register with the State of Texas Emergency Assistance Registry. The STEER program is free and provides local emergency planners and responders information on additional needs in their communities. Next slide. You can register for STEER by dialing 211 or use your video telephone relay option of choice to contact 211 at 877-541-7905 or online at the above web address. And I believe the flyers has this information as well. I'm not sure. But if not, we can always send it out electronically as well. We have all that. Once again, please note, registering yourself with STEER does not guarantee that you will receive a specific service. During an emergency, available services will vary by community. Next slide. This is just a list of emergency contacts in the area, which I'm sure everyone here is familiar with. One more slide, please. And the list continues for Sampat. And last slide. For more information, call or visit us, Coastal Plain Local Emergency Planning Committee. Here's the phone number and the website below. Any questions from anybody?
I have a question. So we use the Code Red system as well here regularly, actually. Will those systems overlap? Do you know if Code Red, if they opt into ours, do they opt into yours since they're within the county?
I don't know, to be quite honest with
We
you.
probably need to check that out to prevent redundancy.
I think we are on the same. So I think if you're signed up for Code Red here with Aransas, I believe that automatically gets you into the same system. We're Tri-County, so we're kind of blanketed. It's the same system. I know that to be true. But I'm not sure if the residents have to go back in there, since there's been changes now. If you want to opt into the non-emergency, you may have to go back in there to opt in for those alerts. The ones that residents most likely signed up for in the past were just emergency.
They do both, yeah. On
Okay.
ours, they take the option to do both. And the
Okay.
STEER program 211, just food for thought, we pushed that over the years. The last time we researched 211, there were only 2 residents that were in that system for us. My understanding is they purge that system once a year and you have to keep re-opting in.
Oh, wow, I did not know
My
that.
understanding, that system STEER hasn't been very reliable for us. Code Red? Absolutely.
I'd like to look more into that STEER for myself too. That's news to me, but thank you for that. Appreciate it. And that's all I have today. By the way, I'd also like to hope Mr. Gillespie, I hope you guys are successful with that program. That sounds like a great idea.
I hope we are too.
That's it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to go to a presentation by Andrew Friedman, Cpl Capital, the city financial advisor regarding a refunding opportunity potentially available to the city and directing city staff and consultants to proceed with the refunding as long as the debt service savings
Thank
can
you,
be
sir.
obtained.
All righty, thank you.
I like the refund.
Mhm.
That's right.
Mm.
We got some-
Refund.
I have one for Vicki, I appreciate it.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Andrew Friedman with Samco Capital Markets. Have the pleasure of serving as your financial advisor when it comes to the city's debt. Be on the agenda here in just a few more minutes. But first, wanted to brief you all on an opportunity that we hope to be able to take advantage of regarding our existing portfolio of debt. So behind the first page of the presentation I just handed out, the city has 2 certificates of obligation, one being the Series 2005, that there are $285,000 left to repay between now and 2025, and then our COs 2012, $2,665,000 outstanding that mature by 2033 that are becoming callable, and that we have an opportunity to refinance for savings. And so that's what we're seeking your informal permission to proceed with today. The outline on the box on the lower left-hand side, the prior debt service for that $2.9 million worth of bonds. You can see the prior debt service. That's the annual debt service that the city will pay between now and 2033 when those debts retire. The refunding debt service is what we believe we could lock in interest rate wise in replacing that debt without extending the amortization schedule. And the difference between those two is the savings that you see on the far right side. Not a tremendous amount of savings, roughly $10,000 to $15,000 a year, for an aggregate savings net of the cost of issuance and any expense to the city of $146,000 and change. If you look at the far right side of that sheet, the summary of the refunding results, the average interest rate on those two bonds that we're currently paying, 2.79%. The true interest cost of the refunding bonds, this is the presumed interest rate that we think we could lock in at 1.41%. So that's just replacing, just like you would your mortgage, refinancing at a lower interest rate without extending the term. Bonds are scheduled to mature 2033, so would these. And so with that, again, not a tremendous amount of savings, certainly worth pursuing. There's no downside to doing that because we're taking these at the first available call date without any penalty to the city in order to do that. These costs are shown net of the cost of issuance. In order to go through this transaction, we would propose doing it as a private placement, just as we've priced the tax notes that we'll consider here in a few more items. With your permission to proceed this evening, we would go out and solicit for bids from local, regional, and national banks, and then we would bring those bid results to you on October 16th to your meeting, at which time you would take a formal action knowing exactly what the savings would be, and you would vote up or down on that item then. Before eventually closing on November 4th. So if interest rates did not meet our expectations and we did not save money, your opportunity to turn this down and say, you know what, well, it just doesn't save money, it doesn't make sense, would be October 16th, not tonight. By going the private placement method route, there's no expense that the city would need to pay if for any reason this didn't work out. If it doesn't work, no problem, nobody's charging a fee. We wouldn't be going to the rating agencies where you would inevitably incur a cost. So there's really no risk to this other than the fact that interest rates always have the potential to move against us and the refunding might ultimately not work. We hope that to not be the case. We've got a lot of time between now and October 16th when we'd be getting those interest rates. But interest rates remain very favorable right now. We think it's worth pursuing. So with that in mind, I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have. And Sandra and I were just visiting about this, the two pieces of debt that we're looking at refinancing are currently paid from the utility system, so the savings that we would recognize would flow to the utility system as a result. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have, or Gary or Sandra, if I've neglected to mention anything, I'm happy to cover that ground.
Saving money is a good thing.
I was just going to say that.
Especially
Sounds
if
good to
it's
me.
no cost. So it's just actually a refinancing, and the part that y'all make money is on the actual refinancing that y'all do, or what?
The way that we or any of your consultants make any money would be upon the successful closing of this refunding. So again, on October 16th, if you all as the governing body say, this just doesn't save enough money, we don't want to proceed with it, we don't get paid, and the refunding doesn't get done, that's perfectly fine. It's your duty as elected officials to make a good deal and save money. But we charge just based on our standard fee with the contract that we have had in place with the city of Aransas Pass for probably 20 years now.
Could you remind us what that would cost us?
Right now, I don't have that number off the top of my head. All of the fees on $2.6 million is probably $60,000. That's not just our fee. You have a bond attorney who works on your behalf, and then we try to account for purchasers' fees that they may have. Sometimes they have their own attorney. We don't know any of that information until we've really gotten through the bidding process. But for the numbers that I've run for here in that presentation that show that savings, I think I've got $60,000 in there for cost of issuance. We certainly hope for that to be an overestimation of cost. But you'll know all of that it's all based on contracts you have either with your bond attorney, financial advisor, et cetera.
So our actual savings would be the $146,000?
Correct. That's net of the cost of
right.
issuance.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good to me.
Sounds good.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now Now we're gonna go to an update on the Euclid Pump Station. Mr. John Gomez, Maintenance Superintendent. Good evening, brother.
I ain't got no slides.
You have a handout?
Not even that. Okay, quick update. It's gonna be real fast. Remember how we talked about we removed pumps and motors a certain way? Now we gotta go back in reverse. Okay, now one of the pumps that had the most damage is the last pump we pulled. That pump is gonna be ready on Monday. So if everything goes right again, weather might prevent us from doing something, but I'm hoping that Tuesday or Wednesday I'll be putting one pump back in, and by the following Friday, I should have the other pump ready to be put back in. Only one dilemma, the engine, the John Deere engine. We're still waiting on parts. The other two pumps got all the parts that we need, are already in. That's why I'm hoping that by next Friday, both pumps, well, at least one pump will be in and the other one will be getting ready to be scheduled to be put in. And then, of course, the motor is already back. The electric motor for the Robaco pump is back, and we'll assemble that. We're still gonna be waiting on I think we got one more quote to wait on for the Very Drive, the operation of the Robaco pump, which is the big pump. And that would be the automatic system we're gonna try to put in. We have one more quote, and then we'll be able to decide on what we're gonna do. Questions?
Yes. If Grace decides to come and visit us with a lot of rain, how is this gonna affect the entire city?
Well, if Grace is gonna be just a tropical storm.
Storm, yeah,
Well, we
with lots of rain.
got pumps set out there, temporary pumps set out there that are ready to go, right?
Yeah, and these past rain events we've had, these pumps haven't worked. Everything's been running on the portable pumps we have.
But we
On the
haven't
little
had the
pump.
rain if we've got a tropical storm and we have several days of heavy rain. I just want the residents to be aware of, we're working towards a solution. Okay.
Is there other pumps that we have lined up for that? No, right? We can only fit 2 pumps there.
Yes, 2 diesel pumps.
Okay, you might be able to go to a 12, I don't know. But there might be something we can do. I'll talk to Fernando about it, see what we can do.
Yeah, as we get closer to it, we'll keep a close eye on it, and if we see it starts turning further north, then we have a lot of vendors we can call up with backup pumps.
And we need to let our residents know that we're, okay.
And on Thursday, I should get feedback whether that pump's gonna be ready on Monday, which you're telling me they are, and that way I'll set the crane operation for Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever's available.
I guess I had one probably for both of y'all. Once all these things get in, are we gonna have any kind of like a startup checklist, like once a month we'll go disconnect the clutch, start the engine, then we
Yes,
can like turn the shaft, turn and a half for preservation?
There's gotta be water in the system to run our big pumps.
Yeah.
If there's no water, we cannot do it, sir. But we do have a maintenance for the engine. We're gonna have a maintenance for the engine, of course, and we go out there and visibly look on it, make sure that everything's okay. As far as testing, I've said this before, the very first time I came up here, testing, it depends on how much water we got. So let's say this storm doesn't come in. Well, we're gonna need one to test the equipment because there's no water.
Well, I was thinking if it's got a twin disc on it, you could disengage that twin disc and start
we
the
do,
engine,
yeah.
and you can manually turn the
Right.
drive line to make sure the pump's not locked up.
Right,
Something like that.
we can do that.
Okay.
The Robaco would be a little bit hard because it is a big pump, but we can roll them by hand.
For the purpose of testing these pumps, once they're reinstalled, we can take our water truck and fill the wet well with water.
And it'd be-
Just to test it.
It would be a real quick test because that truck doesn't have that much water in it.
Yeah.
And like I say, the Robaco pumps out 19,000 gallons a minute. So it'll be a real quick test. But as far as rotating the pumps, we can do that.
Yeah.
We'll set them up on a monthly rotation check.
But a big
Okay.
part for this to be successful is after everything's put together, we gotta get the right personnel to be able to operate that pump station.
And that was my next
Make sure
thing.
that we do not burn the pump again.
Yep.
And we are gonna set up some training for the guys who are gonna be operating the pump. We're not just gonna give it to them. And I will be overseeing,
And the key will be the variable drive on that.
Yeah.
On that.
so,
That way it'll turn on by itself.
so when we get to that point, it'll be a lot more information we handed out. Brother, I take care of you. Remember that. Y'all have a good evening.
You too. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Now we're gonna go to a presentation regarding the Corps of Engineers comment period. Ms. Kathy Fulton.
Hi there.
Hey, Kathy.
I sent you an email. I think I sent you an email and just said, could we put up this, one of the slides on there, but if we can't, don't worry about it. Hi, everybody. My name is Kathy Fulton, and I'm in Port Aransas. I live in Port Aransas, Texas. I'm a member of the Port Aransas Conservancy, as well as Keeper Wild and other things. And I just wanted to let everybody know about this public notice that came out with the Army Corps of Engineers. This is a proposal for dredging that will be in Redfish Bay, really, as opposed to on the outer banks or the outside areas where we've been dealing with other issues with dredging. Rockport Terminals is the applicant, and what they're trying to, or what the goal here is that they do propose to combine two expired permits, which is a little unusual. And then those expired permits, they will also add to what's being combined here a whole nother area that's not in either permits, and it's a wetland, and they want to, that wetland would be completely removed. Okay, and so what we're trying to, so it's about, according to them on this estimate, it's 218 cubic yards. More or less of sediment. Now, part of this is for the little channel that's been there for quite a while. That's 14 feet deep is what it was originally authorized for, from about 60 feet wide, and it goes to the intercoastal. And then there was another little area segment at the back there, or I guess, I don't want to say the back, but away from the intercoastal, that was approved for a little 6-foot deep sailboat basin. And that part got done gosh knows when. There's some old moorings there, there's an old little ramp deal there, but it's obviously never been utilized. The proposal is to deepen, or is to continue to do some maintenance dredging on the channel, the main part of the channel, to the approved 14 feet. I don't know why that permit was ever allowed to expire. That's kind of odd. It shouldn't. Usually when you get a permit like that, you never let them expire. But then the little boat basin, that was allowed to expire, and clearly now they want to incorporate that into their property, and that's, I understand that. But what's going on is there's an area right before it, and it is, they're saying it's about a 2.5 acre area, but they're not calling it a full wetland. They're claiming it's only going to be about 1.3 acres of wetland. You know, I personally, I have to go out to these sites to really know what we're talking about half the time. But it's a pretty good mangrove area, and the problem is they want to take the little sailboat basin area to 14 feet, so that's extra dredge material. And then the rest of it, though, is going to be about this wetland. And I wish everybody could see this, but this wetland is kind of like, I just think that what I want everyone to understand, and I've got some of these applications or some of these things for people to mail out if they would, or to email. What the problem with the application, there are several things. I'm not saying that this is we want to oppose, but there's very minimal information provided, and actually usually in these permits they are supposed to at least say what the project's for, what's the benefit of the project, and nowhere in this application does it ever reference what the project is really for. Now, I'm making the assumption based on the diagrams and some other things that this is to expand an area for barges, so it's for industrial barges as opposed to the pleasure boat permit that expired, so that's one, kind of thing to factor in. But the other things going on here is that this new part of the permit, they're only making these claims, but they of so much damage, and then they're also going to go down to 14 feet. It opens up a really wide area there, and that's obvious. So these barges that they want to put in, looks to me like maybe even fit in 6 of them if they could. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing or a good thing, but I am saying that this public notice fails to clearly state the expansion and type of facility. In fact, they never call it an expansion in the application. However, you find the word expansion on every one of their of the maps that they did. It says Rockport Terminal Dredge Expansion Project, so it's an expansion. And these are things that should be pointed out to the Corps, and we need to get people to comment, because you want the Corps to crack down on putting in, making sure those protections are there. There should be a 1-to-1 compensatory mitigation mentioned in here, and it actually says in the application no mitigation is proposed, and that should be a bad thing. Everybody needs to understand it's actually required under the Army Corps, under any wetland removal. That is an automatic. You've got to provide something else to make up for what you're taking away. The other thing that is mentioned is they're not talking about any, they don't talk about the marine life. They don't talk about anything like that. There's no endangered species. Well, I given what we've been dealing with over in Port A, I'm going to bet there's probably a few sort of like endangered or threatened species lingering around here, just like there are over there. And I think that's important to remember too, that this wetland is sustaining a population of primarily blue crab, and along with other marine life, including spawning populations quite possibly. And to have them say that none of this is really needing to be looked at, I would say that, in my opinion, I would be requesting not an environmental impact statement. That's something that freaks everybody out for good reason. It takes a long time. But I would be requesting an environmental assessment or a biological assessment, which is less time, less costly to the applicant. But it's kind of pushing, you need to push the Corps, because they're being pretty lax in this application of not stating these requirements. Well, I would want to know what's going to happen with all the population of crab and whatever else is over there in this whole wetland mangrove area. Well, what are y'all going to do about that? Are you just going to dig them out and kill them? Or are you going to try to do something? Are you going to, if you are, you do need to propose some compensatory mitigation. Where would that mitigation go? These are all things that need to be pushed to the Corps when you make comments, and that's the main thing. The other thing not mentioned at all in this, oyster beds, oyster habitats. And I think that dredging, there's a plume that comes out from dredging, and the plume that comes out from dredging and the disturbance and the turbidity, they're only claiming about 0.15 acres of seagrass will be affected. But actually, a good friend of mine who retired from the EPA and is nice enough to take a look at some of these things, he said just looking at the wetland grass, seagrass bed viewer, it's more like 600 acres that could be affected. Now, obviously, the further you go, the less. But the problem is there's nothing mentioned in here about best management practices, such as turbidity curtains, or about doing this at a dormant time of year where the grasses are less susceptible to the shock of the disturbance. The main thing is that the dredge plume that can come out from this area, especially when they're saying that they're only claiming it's this little area here for seagrasses, but the plume that can come out into the intercoastal, this is where I would be really worried about seagrass beds and stuff being affected over here, because as you know, when you're affecting your seagrass, you're affecting all your marine life too. So I want to encourage people to please consider making public comment. These public comments are due, I think, by September 7th, and I would request a public meeting, and it's really important because then people can kind of get together better and understand what's being proposed and make their recommendations. I'm not saying that you need to say no. I am saying you need to push the core on this, because to me, this application is a little too, it is too vague, and it's not accounting for a lot of things, so I would be requesting and pushing hard for them. And by the way, just alone in this little, this is just the first section of what they refer you to in these, of how you should make comment and all. Just in this little section, after you get through all the definitions, the first thing that comes up is all this stuff about how it affects the people that use the waters. And then the next thing that keeps coming up is wetlands, wetlands, wetlands. And then there's a whole nother section dedicated to nothing but wetlands. The reason this is so important is because we are losing our seagrasses around here at Redfish Bay, and we know that this is the state, protected area, but our seagrasses aren't necessarily protected from dredging, and that's why we've got to make sure we get involved and speak out, and that's all I've got to say.
We'll get Gary to check up on it and whatnot.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kathy.
You bet.
Appreciate all your time on
We
that.
might want to get our Wetlands Committee together.
Yeah.
Because we do have a wetlands ordinance, and that's in city limits.
And like I said, I have any of these that anybody might want.
I want one,
Yes,
Kathy,
absolutely.
please. And I'll probably email you tomorrow for a little bit.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have you drafted a letter already?
Oh, I'm working on mine. Mine tends to be very, they come in a little bit right on the wire. But I make sure I get it all in.
I'd like you to draft a letter for me, and we'll send it out to all of our voters.
Okay.
That I
Yeah,
can
I could
easily
draft
send.
we're gonna try to draft a statement and then get people to sign. I
There
know
you go.
that.
That's what I'd like to do. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, now we're gonna go to the consent agenda. All of the following items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of this item unless a council member so requests. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the July 14th, 2021 workshop meeting and the July 19th, 2021 regular meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we're gonna go to consider and act an ordinance extending a local state of disaster declaration, COVID-19, due to a public health emergency for 90 calendar days from the effective date of ordinance.
Okay.
Oh. I make a motion that we extend a local state of disaster declaration, COVID-19, due to a public health emergency for 90 calendar days.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we're gonna go to city manager, which is consideration and approval of a resolution of the city council of Aransas Pass, Texas, authorizing the execution of an interlocal agreement with the Aransas Pass Municipal Development District and other matters in connection therewith.
You can see the memo before you there. And this is an agreement that's necessary with MDD for the projects that you're familiar with, the basketball court, the baseball court, baseball improvement, baseball field improvement. And the local agreement is necessary for that, especially as it pertains to funding, and that's what we will be doing. Pretty much a housekeeping.
I make a motion that we approve the resolution of the City Council of Aransas Pass, Texas, authorizing the execution of an interlocal agreement with Aransas Pass Municipal Development District and other matters in connection therewith.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now we're gonna go to considering an approval of an ordinance of authorizing the issuance of a City of Aransas Pass, Texas tax note series 2021, levying an annual ad valorem tax within the limitations prescribed by law for the payment of the obligation and other matters incident and related thereto.
Good evening again. Got here the results of the bids we took at noon today for the tax notes that are to be repaid by the interlocal agreement you
Can I
just
have one more,
adopted.
please?
Oh,
First.
the interlocal agreement with the Municipal Development District. You can see from this short presentation here, we received 4 bids, the best bid being 1.11% fixed rate for 7 years from Amagi Bank. The other bidders were Truist, which was the old BB&T out of North Carolina, TIB, and Frost Bank coming in at the lowest bid. We take their purchasers' costs, most of which 2 of the bidders had 0. The winning bid had a $503 purchaser cost for a certain fee. And Frost Bank, even though they submitted a bid of 1.2%, they had an outside legal counsel that they were going to charge the city. So we make adjustments to their bids to come up with not just the interest rate that they bid, which you can see here as that interest rate, second column from the left. But once adjusted for those purchasers' costs, we come up with a true interest cost. So you can see the winning bid of 1.123 once adjusted for that cost, and Frost Bank's bid after adjusting for that $4,000 cost jumps from 1.2 to 1.303%. So with that in mind, we've got the final numbers behind here. Again, these tax notes, even though the city of Aransas passes issuing them, you've adopted an interlocal agreement whereby the MDD will make the annual payments on these tax notes for those improvements. On September 1st, when we close on these tax notes, subject to your approval right now, we'll put $1 million in the city's bank account to be spent toward that project, to be repaid over 7 years over level debt service at a fixed interest rate of 1.11%. As we went through the planning of this process, we'd assumed an interest rate of 1.4%. So this is coming in below those expectations. Very happy with the result of this bid. And so with the refunding in mind, where we've been running interest rates, it tells us that hopefully we'll be able to achieve those savings. But we feel good about the bids that are brought before you this evening for your consideration in adopting the ordinance issuing this tax note. So with that in mind, happy to answer any questions that you may have. Again, this will be supported by payments from the MDD that will not be going on to the city's tax rate as you adopt your upcoming budget.
Favor of the council?
I'll move on the approval of an ordinance authorizing the issuance of City of Aransas Pass, Texas tax notes, Series 2021, levying an annual ad valorem tax with the limitations prescribed by law for the payment of the obligation and other matters incident and related thereto.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're gonna go to consider an act. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
gonna go to consider an act on setting a public hearing on the ad valorem tax rate for September 7, 2021.
And we're going to come up. We do this every year, of course, and it was necessary to do it again this year to set the public hearings related to the annual, for the tax rate for the operating budget. Sandra, you want to give us?
Yes, yes, sir. I'm a little not prepared right now. Okay, so tonight we need to go ahead and set the public hearing for September the 7th, if the council so agrees, for the tax rate and the public hearing for our budget. Also we're also going to be setting a proposed tax rate that we had previously discussed, the 78, I'm trying to find it, 78.4481 cents, which is a decrease from the current tax rate. It'll be an increase in tax collections because of our appraised values, but it is a decrease in the tax rate.
So this is what this is what we have here tonight. So the second page of that memo pretty much says what the current tax rate is, the 79 cents. And then what we're proposing is a 78 cents. So we're hopefully setting the hearings for September the 7th, and we're hoping to possibly adopt on the meeting on the 7th as well. We're hopefully having our budget and everything put together by then, and having the adoption of the budget and the adoption of the tax rate at that council meeting as well.
When's the soonest we'll have a copy of the proposed budget?
The proposed budget is online, not.
Is it online right now?
It is online right now. I will say that what's there is not more than likely what is going to be presented for you to adopt. What is there was what was presented to the council as a whole, with like everybody's wish, dreams, and everything on there. And it has been pared down somewhat, so that we could make it, feasibly, financially feasible for the citizens. If anything, it's going to have a little bit less than what's in there. It's not going to have anything new than what was already presented to council. It'll, I don't know, do you want me to say? We took some stuff off the budget.
Okay.
I don't think some of the departments know what was taken off, so I don't know.
Actually, wasn't that much.
So.
But we did carry out somewhat to make it a budget we could fit within the boundaries that but it was necessary to take it down somewhat.
So, yeah, so if you go on and look at our proposed, it's gonna be less than that. It's not gonna be more than that. So that's been up there since we presented to council. It's been up there since that day.
Okay. All right, thank you, Sandra.
Yes, sir. Okay. I make a motion that we set September 7th, 2021, a public hearing on the ad valorem tax rate.
I'll second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Did you want to say something?
Nope. No. My memory just moved on.
When you read when you take the vote on item 6, if you'll just read that whole item indicating that the proposed rate is being set at 0.784481.
That's 7 what?
7.6.
7.6. Okay, so
7, okay.
I make a motion that we set a public hearing for September 7th on the ad valorem tax rate to be decreased to .784481 per $100,000 valuation. $100 valuation.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now we're gonna go to consider an act on setting a public hearing on the fiscal year 2021, 2022 annual operating budget for September 7th, 2021.
And that's pretty much it right there.
Yes.
It's just asking you to set a public hearing for the budget. Do it every year.
Okay. I make a motion that we set a public hearing on the fiscal year 2021-2022 annual operating budget for September 7th, 2021.
I'll
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then we're gonna go to consider an act on setting September 7th as the date for adopting fiscal year 2021, 2022 annual operating budget.
That's it again. We're on that date.
I'll make a motion that we set September 7th, 2021 as the date for adopting the fiscal year 2021-2022 annual operating budget.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I think you're good.
I think that was it.
And that was it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Well,
Very
we read
good.
7.6 again. I know we
Yes.
read it in 7.3, right?
Sorry. Okay.
7.6.
1.1.
One more time.
Okay, so we're gonna go to 7.7, right?
7.6.
7.6.
7.6, Mayor.
Okay,
Just one more
consider
time.
an act on setting September 7, 2021 as a date for adopting the ad valorem tax rate of 0.784481 per hundred valuation.
I make a motion that we set September 7th, 2021 is the date for adopting the ad valorem tax rate of .784481 per 100 valuation.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okey-dokey.
Okay, let's all throw up now.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is the item in the, this is the change order related to the work, that the additional work, the unexpected work that's being done out at Conround Harbor, more specifically related to the bulkhead. And the additional work is necessary because of the collapse of part of that portion of the bulkhead. And you have some numbers before you on what the cost is. And that's for that portion alone. You need to keep in mind, if any additional work is necessary beyond that, as they head north toward the bait shack up there, then that's not included with this. And I talked with Doug shortly before the meeting, Doug Lawrence, the designer. And at that point anyway, was being somewhat comfortable with the numbers, am I correct? So we're looking at a little over $600,000. We knew it would be expensive. And again, this was unexpected, unanticipated, but I'm sure you'll have questions. Keep in mind, this is a FEMA project, no small point. And FEMA is been working with us because this is Harvey related. That's an important point to remember also. And that's, Sandra and I have talked with FEMA on one occasion and preparing to talk with them again now that we have numbers. And now that we have a written new direction because of developments out there, that's something we're going to have to sit down with FEMA with and explain that to them and present these numbers to them. Again, as of this moment, we have not done that, but that's being set up as we talk. Again, I'm repeating intentionally, but that's an important point to remember, that this is a FEMA project and it's tied to Harvey. It's open to questions from you, Mayor and Council. The contractor is here, and also the estimator for the contractor. I'll let them introduce themselves if you call them forward. Doug Lawrence, the designer with our Dura, is here, formerly L&V, and all three of them are here to answer any questions you might have related to this change order.
Okay, I got one quick question. Okay, in approving this, we're committed to pay that amount whether FEMA pays for it or not, right?
That is correct. That's got to be paid, and as I understand it, and if I'm incorrect, the contractor will tell me in his next statement. But until this is approved, work does not proceed. Am I correct on that? Okay. So the answer to your question is yes. And if that doesn't happen, then the work does not proceed.
I have a question. Is the material readily available, or is it going to be a long wait time on materials?
Can y'all come up here to answer the question, please?
Hello, everybody. My name's James Oliveris. I'm the Vice President of J.M. Davison Marine Construction. And to answer your question, the materials that we need, we already have, or they're readily available.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, now I have one question for Doug. So what changed in the script of work to make such a difference in the price to where just because the land caved in at that spot?
It is exactly that. So an emergency action was taken to drive a protective wall to protect a structure. That wasn't part of the original scope. We lost a significant amount of material into the harbor that we have to replace. And the additional mitigation where we dug out behind the bulkhead to try to keep it from collapsing on the adjacent part that didn't collapse, that was also something that I recommended as I saw that the bulkhead collapsed, to try to take load off that bulkhead. It also allowed me to take a look at the additional anchors that were holding the bulkhead, that section of the bulkhead up. So to answer your question, yes, this is all because we lost that bulkhead. So it also includes the bulkhead we had to take out. So that was not part of the original plan. The plan was to install a bulkhead in front of the existing bulkhead, so when it collapsed, we had to take that section out as well. So.
First item is procurement and installation of 12 pairs of sheet piles. Is that because you have the double sheet piling?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and that'll stay that way, correct?
That will stay that way.
Okay. 15 tiebacks to the deadman, I understand that. Are you, when they did the deadman before, what they did is, because they were so rusted out, they actually welded, I don't know how they did it, they put the rods, they put new pieces of rods to the piece that was still existing. Are you replacing the entire rod?
We're replacing it in its entirety.
You are fixing it in,
Yeah,
so
we're
are you
not-
putting
we're
a new rod in?
Completely
or
new
you're fixing
rod.
the rod?
We're not
You're-
fixing the
new-
rod, we're
okay,
installing a
putting new rod,
completely
okay.
new rod.
And then I understand the old concrete pile, removal of that. And then it says, removal of soil for pressure release behind the bulkhead is $7,215. And then in the next one, you put procurement and installation of backfill with Bull Rock, GeoGrid, and Select Fill. I mean, those two together are almost $220,000.
There's some 800 cubic yards of material that was lost. That's a significant amount.
That went into the water?
That went into the water. That's, the cost that I'm seeing per cubic yard are very much in line with regional cost for providing and installing. That equates to $200 to $250 a yard installed. That's pretty reasonable.
Okay. And installation of 3 sections of the pavement at the pavilion. So the 3 slabs of concrete, what are you gonna do with those? Are you pouring all new concrete? What?
All
I
new
don't understand.
concrete. So
All new concrete.
what's there is gonna come out. It's just out of place, so it has to come out.
Yes, okay.
And
So
we're
there's
gonna.
no way to re-secure that?
No.
And save that money?
No.
Resetting of sheet piles after removal of bulkhead. Resetting of sheet piles after removing of
So that, we had started driving that wall. We drove 40 feet or so, I'm not sure the exact footage, somewhere along that. Well, we had to take that back out and then re-drive it.
Right, I
It was-
remember that.
It was
Okay.
displaced after that bulkhead collapsed.
Okay, that I do remember. Procurement and installation of drain pipe, where is that?
There's a storm drain that was missed on the original plan that when the collapse happened, it was exposed, so we have to reconnect that piece of pipe.
Is that the one that's clogged up with cement on the hill?
It may,
It can't possibly be.
Yeah.
it's an adjacent.
Those drain lines don't exist anymore.
From the roadway underneath your property all the way past the bulkhead into the water.
Is it the one near the floating dock, the city docks?
That's the one that don't work no more.
It's kind of where the gates are, the opening there and the gates.
Uh-huh.
It's somewhere on the roadway there, that's where the drain box is at. And that
Okay.
goes out that way.
Okay. And standby time, $30,000.
Yeah, that's the standby time. What does that mean?
Is that a day, is that an hour, what is that?
So, the standby time
What are we gonna be
is.
standing by for?
Yes, we're standing by, waiting for. direction.
Waiting for emergency instructions after we had driven that protective wall in. That was immediate. After that, deciding what to do, how to do it, took a couple of days, two and a half days.
That's roughly $10,000 a day.
$10,000 a day for y'all to wait for them to tell you what to do?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Must be nice.
For you to
Unfortunately,
wait, for
it's-
who to tell you what to do?
For Doug to tell them what
For
to do,
Doug?
Yes.
when the emergency situation came up.
Yes. The
Is that what they
additional,
just be quiet about?
Was there any rented equipment that was being held?
yes, sir.
Okay.
It's all with.
How much per day for that?
I don't have that right offhand, but I can get that to you.
Okay. But it's several thousand, I would
Yes.
think.
Okay. I have a question, though, that really goes to Gary. 600,000, and you haven't talked to FEMA
We
yet.
have talked with FEMA, but
One-
not.
One time, but not now
but
that
not
you
with
have
numbers.
this.
That's correct.
If we table this for 24 hours, and when will you talk to FEMA?
As soon as we can get that schedule, we have to go by their schedule. And I don't think it's set up yet, or is it?
Wednesday would be the earliest, because he's out until Wednesday.
Okay, so could we not have an emergency meeting, even if it's by telephone or Zoom or something, to approve? I mean, I personally would like to know FEMA saying, well, no, we're only gonna give you $100,000. Now we have to regroup and figure out what we're gonna do. 600,000 is a big
Yeah,
chunk
so-
of change
raised
for the
it-
budget.
You raised an excellent point, but I can almost guarantee you, they're not gonna make a decision right away. They're gonna have to take it through their channels, and I cannot tell you how long that's gonna last.
All we're gonna do right, all we're doing right now is we're gonna submit a change scope to FEMA. We're gonna put a letter of what you all said, what you're reading right now, together, they're waiting on that specific detail, to put change scope letter together with the estimated cost, how much that's gonna cost, and we're gonna send that out. It's not really to FEMA, because FEMA is already, we've already got our closed out. It's gonna be through owner and resident with the state, they're gonna send it to FEMA. And then FEMA is gonna review it, and it's gonna either agree and let us proceed to go forward, or disagree, in which case we're gonna have to come back to the table, now we're gonna pay.
But we've already committed to them, if we agree tonight, that we're gonna pay them $600,216, correct? Am I hearing that correct?
That is correct, and if we decide not to do anything at this point, everything comes to a standstill
I
for an
understand
indefinite period of
that
time.
we can't do, but, I mean, maybe a little negotiations here, guys, that if FEMA comes back and says, I can't pay that whole $600,000, maybe we need to sit back down at the table and negotiate a little bit.
It's $600,000.
I mean, you guys have done a great job. It's not your problem. J.M. Davidson, I can say, has done a great job. They've been there every day. Russell Soki's been there. I mean, I just, this is a hard.
It's
nut to
$600,000 for how much longer on bulkhead repair? I understand that the part that already collapsed, is this amount for that part that just collapsed?
Just collapsed.
This is just
It doesn't
600,000 just in back of a pavilion.
If anything happens as they head north, it does not include any of that.
That's my biggest thing.
I think I was gonna get close to asking what Jan did. I mean, it's unfortunate this happened, but it's gotta be fixed regardless. And, let's say worst case scenario, FEMA doesn't give us $1. Have we looked at any areas of where we could pull this funding from? Or any other areas?
From our budget?
No, not from our budget, any other type of areas where we could come up with the funding?
Oh, my goodness. As far as last-minute grants like this, I can almost guarantee you that will not happen.
Yeah.
But as far as the budget goes, I can almost guarantee you that will not happen.
The big stuff?
So you know where that takes us.
Yeah.
You know where that takes us.
Mhm. I know.
I don't need to say it publicly.
Favor of the council?
Another thing to consider too is that if we don't approve this, the standby time is gonna continue on human maintenance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because they
Well,
gotta
they've
get,
already pulled all the equipment out. They haven't been working over the weekend. They pulled all the equipment out. And we just assumed it was to reload. You could take the old equipment and reload.
We were waiting so we could get you guys the numbers and the very directive so we could put the numbers together for you guys.
yeah, these guys still gotta get paid.
We already got to the part of the scope,
Right.
that we put the wall back in place, but now we're waiting on, we need to know
I don't understand the standby part. I'm confused in that part. What are y'all waiting for? I understand that y'all are waiting for us to approve it or not, but what is the emergency that y'all are waiting for y'all to get paid for it? I'm confused in that part. That's totally throwing me off. I don't see why we should be paying for standby when y'all are really not standing by for nothing. Nothing at all. There's no emergency to it. It's already been taken care of what the emergency was. What is the continuation of the emergency? I mean, it's just a part of us saying yes or no. Y'all got the job, y'all continue with it or not.
Right.
I don't see no reason why to have to pay for us to make up our mind.
Because we still have equipment and stuff sitting on standby for this job. So another way to go about it is you can tell us to demote, and we'll take everything out, offer and everything. But with that said, you will also be incurred a remobilization charge.
That's true, as long as they got the equipment off in their hands, they're paying for it.
Absolutely. I just wish there was some way that, should FEMA not guarantee this whole $600,216, that you would say tonight that you would be willing to come back to the table and negotiate a little bit with us.
But wouldn't we do that, I'm just thinking aloud here, wouldn't we do that anyway? If, say you allow them to move forward today, and FEMA says, for whatever reason, now, so far, they've been okay, but that's before the numbers, and FEMA says, no, we're not gonna do it, then we've allowed them to move forward. On the other hand, that's when negotiation would start for that $600,000, and it could mean other things too.
Yeah, because this doesn't include the sales tax and additional parts.
That's not what I'm talking about when I say it could mean
I know
other
what you're
things.
saying, I know what
Okay.
you're saying. Oh, okay, okay. Oh, thank you very much. Let's take that out. Okay, so if we approve this tonight, when will work start again? Because the barges are not there.
We'll be there Wednesday or Thursday.
Excuse me?
Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay, and is that going into the standby time? Why should we pay standby time if you're not ready to get back on the job? I mean, the collapse happened, what, 2 weeks ago, I believe?
Y'all can just skip that part and keep moving forward with the job?
But you can't because
We're
the way the
waiting,
sheet
we're waiting
pile
on
is.
concrete piles to do up further north, which we should be getting them August 23rd, the week of August 23rd. And we'll start getting those in order to keep working ahead.
I'm just having a hard time with it.
I think it's because they've got all their equipment on standby and they're still paying for it, waiting to figure out if we want to still
But I
use their
understand just
services
hold it
or
and
not.
Keep going with the job till we figure this one out.
I mean, we gotta fix it. We can't use the pavilion the way it is. We can't use the seawall the way it is.
Well, yeah, and then you risk affecting the entire integrity of that whole side of the bulkhead. That's
We have
another big problem.
integrity affecting the entire pavilion going in.
Oh, yeah,
And
everything down there.
That's why they put that secondary sheet pile.
I'm fine with it.
Then make your
We gotta
motion.
do it.
I know we gotta do it.
I make a motion to approve change order number 1 with J.M. Davidson for unanticipated repair work to the Con Brown Harbor bulkhead.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we'll see you on Wednesday.
That was a hard one. We're FEMA pays for it.
Oh, I understand, but FEMA comes back and says, I'll give you $400,000. The city is up for $200,000. Then we've gotta go.
I want to hear.
Have you been out there?
They understand how these things work.
The sheet piling was further, much further out.
That's fine.
That's, hey.
That's fine.
as passionate, that's all.
And rightly so. Rightly so. If FEMA comes back and says, okay, we're gonna give you $400,000 and you gotta pick up the other 200 and some odd thousand dollars.
We can't pick it up, so you know what that means.
Well, I understand that.
We're just gonna rely on the Lord to go ahead and take care of this and pay for it.
We'll sell Gary's truck.
You know that
2018
tax decrease that we're giving people? Oh, Lord. Excuse me,
Okay.
what did you say?
Take up donations.
We'll start
No, we're
with
gonna
you,
do a bake sale in front of the
Donald.
bakery cafe. Yay, garage sale.
Okay,
Okay, now,
moving on.
we're gonna go to the monthly municipal court report for July 2021.
That's
Mr.
how-
Mayor and Council, all
Yeah, all
reports
the reports.
tonight are written because of activities that are, city-related activities that are necessary after this meeting. We have to move forward quickly, is all I'm saying.
Okay.
So,
now, we're gonna go to public safety, which is consider an act on approving Deanna Gates, Animal Control Officer, as the local rabies control authority, LRCA, in accordance with section 825 or 826.017 of the Texas Health and Safety Code, excuse me.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is just a formality. We've already been basically using Deanna and April as the authority to investigate bites and stuff like that. That's what this comes down to, and to enforce state law as it pertains to rabies, vaccinations, and stuff like that. So the last time we updated this with y'all, I think it was Jessica Doherty that was the LRCA, and that's been a while back. So with this, just a formality bringing us current to where we need to be.
I make a motion, we appoint Deanna Gates, Animal Control Officer, as the local rabies control authority, LRCA, in accordance with section 826.017 of the Texas Health and Safety Code.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're gonna go to consider an act on a request from the Aransas Pass Fire Department to waive the rental fee for the use
No,
of.
no, you've got, consider an act on it.
Go up.
The police chief.
Oh,
12-2.
I skipped one. Consider an act on approving the police chief to enter into a
Memorandum.
memorandum of understanding between the Aransas Pass Police Department and Coastal Plains Community Center for community-based mental health and/or substance use disorder services.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. This is just, again, another formality. We've been partners with the local mental health authority for years. We depend on one another. They're gonna use these MOUs, I believe, to help with funding and programs as we move forward to better service our mental health and substance abuse consumer people.
I make a motion to approve the police chief to enter into an MOU between the Aransas Pass Police Department and Coastal Plains Community Center.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we're gonna go to the consider an act on request from the Aransas Pass Fire Department to waive the rental fees for the use of the Aransas Pass Civic Center for the firefighters' ball on September 25th, 2021.
How about a happy note, something exciting, huh?
Yeah.
The Aransas Pass Fire Department's gonna be holding a firefighters ball and a barbecue competition September 25th. And we would like the fees waived through the Civic Center while we're using the Civic Center for the firefighters ball. This is gonna be a fundraiser for the fire department, so this would help us out on increasing the benefits from this fundraiser.
I can't make a motion.
I make a motion to request the Aransas Pass Fire Department to waive the rental fee for use of the Aransas Pass Civic Center for the firefighters' ball on September 25th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Now
you.
we're gonna go to citizen comments. Citizen comments are intended for the matter that are not scheduled on the agenda. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and state your name and address for the record. Be advised that the Texas Open Meeting Act prohibits the city council from responding and discussing your comments. The law authorizes the following: make a statement of factual information, recite existing policies, advise that this subject may be placed on the agenda for subsequent meeting.
Thank you. Howard Gillespie, 801 North Sandpiper, Ingleside on the Bay, Texas, and County Commissioner. Something I shared with the police chief on a couple properties in Aransas Pass. Not really in their city limits, but over there on 1068 McMullen, you have a illegal trailer park and garbage dump. Well, that's being taken by the county for taxes. We do have to have a tax resale first before we can completely take it over and go in and clean it all out. We're working on that now. Matter of fact, the tax assessor collector is moving as fast as she can to get this done. The other thing is there's another property on Beasley at 131 or just right up from it across from Ann Melton's log house that's got a bunch of junk on it as well. Well, we own that now. So it should have been posted by the sheriff's department for no trespassing, and we'll get in there and get that cleaned out as well. So just thought I'd share that with you. Matter of fact, I'd forgotten about it till the chief reminded me. So.
I just want to mention, council, that this, Howard has been a strong advocate for these properties and helping us get them cleaned up. We received #1 complaints, McMullen right there and 1069.
Yeah.
And he's been committed to it for about a year now. He's
It's been probably a little over a year. Now, the people who redid the trailer park right next door to this, I can't remember the name of it right now, but they are interested in this property if it's cleaned up. So, and they've really cleaned up that trailer park in there too. So very nice. So anyway, so we're getting there. A little slow, but we're getting there.
Thank you, Howard.
Yep.
Thank
Thank you.
Thanks, Howard.
Yeah, you're welcome, sir.
Mary, we have any citizen comments on?
No, not on my.
Anybody else? No, okay, now we're gonna go into executive session, which is section 551.071 of the Texas Open Meeting Act, to meet with his attorney to seek legal advice on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the city council under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with the Texas Open Meeting Act relating to the State of Texas EXREL Association Against Annexation Abuse versus City of Aransas Pass, cost number 8-19-0368-CV-C in the 343rd District Court of Aransas County. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permit application number SWG-2021-00367, filed by Rockport Terminal for dredging and the construction and installation of structures located at a project site located in Redfish Bay and adjacent wetlands 3 miles south of Rockport, Aransas County, Texas, with latitude 27.936-93645 degrees north, longitude 97.11492 degrees west. And it is 7:33.
All right.
We're gonna reconvene in open session to consider and take action, if any, on any item discussed in executive session. It is 8 p.m.
There's no action to be taken, and I make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll
Second.
second.
All in favor?